My story is called the Eustis-Ridge Ritual. And here it goes. It's a chilly Halloween night at the cabin in Eustis, Maine. Inside, on the TV, the credits roll for Reanimator. I thought I was going to throw up for like half the movie, Nick said. I can't believe he used the reanimation juice on Megan at the end. Was it the whole point that nothing good could come from that, James asked. The lighting was really good throughout, though. I have to tell Uncle Steve I finally watched it. I can't say I'm surprised. I knew we should have ended the movie marathon with the ritual. That was so good, said Aiden. Wow, I did not expect that movie to be so weird. Sorry, guys. All I knew was that it was based on the H.P. Lovecraft story, Herbert West's Reanimator, Joe offered apologetically. He carried on. That figures, though, I didn't even really like the story. Everyone continued to leave their seats. I can't believe it's 3 a.m. I bet nobody in a 50-mile radius is awake right now, Aiden said. Well, actually, the Pines Market is 24 hours now, so I guess they are, Hudson said. Before anyone continued, Joe said, Oh no, I think I left my backpack in the barn from when Aiden and I were in there earlier. Nobody stopped leaving. Hold on, guys, I need to get that, and I'm not going out there alone. I'm going to bed, Hudson said, plainly. I can go, Aiden offered. Nah, we can't split up. Think of the horror movies. Everybody's got to come with me. Begrudgingly, they all trudged outside onto the porch. The wind was coming up across the field and over their heads. The massive overlook was filled with wilting blueberry bushes and shrinking plants. Everything was bathed in an orange hue. That's right, James said. It's a harvest moon tonight. It was too spooky to linger, so with no further comments, they made their way along the cabin and into the back of the barn. Inside the barn was full of stuff. Four-wheelers, snowmobiles, sleds, an antique carriage, and all the tools in the world. Joe made his way over to the four-wheelers and picked up his bag. Found it, he said. He turned around and said, We should go back now, to an empty room. Everyone was upstairs, poking around. He could hear them, so he went up too. There was an old plow, plenty of things covered in dust or sheets, and heaping stacks of chairs here. They all seemed to be clustered around something in the corner. What is it, guys? He asked. Look what James found, Nick said. There were carvings on one of the posts of the barn. How old is this place? Hudson asked. Well, the cabin is pretty old. Our grandfather built it, Nick started to say. But the barn has been here for way longer than that. I don't really know how long, actually. Maybe a couple 100 years? The place was built by loggers, maybe in the 1800s. What do these carvings mean? Joe asked, looking closer. But it was mostly pictograms. He could make out the moon at the top and the sun further down, and something resembling a moose or even a bear in the middle. There's some writing over here, Aiden pointed to the other side of the post. But it's really rough, and I have no idea what it says. Looks like some other language. Fear the orange moon. The creature comes from deep within the wood. It feasts all night, only to disappear at sunrise, James read. James, is that actually what it says? Or did you just make that up? Joe asked. I really hope you made that up. You're really freaking me out, Hudson said. It's German, that's what it says. James seemed concerned himself. Great, now we have some ancient German woodsman telling us that. I'm not even sure what. He's going to get us during the harvest moon, and it's a harvest moon out. I'm going to bed. We should get out of here, Joe. They all carefully made their way downstairs, silent as mice. They were scared stiff, and no one wanted to talk again. Every covered piece of old furniture looked more menacing, and the rustic tools on the walls brought their fear more to life. Nick reached for the doorknob to leave, and a loud bang came from it. He stepped back as another noise came from outside, on the wall next to the door. The banging continued along the barn wall, to everyone's horror. For a moment, no one said a word. James only locked the door and returned to the safety of the group. The banging only got louder and more frequent. Let's go to the other side, Hudson whisper yelled. They all silently agreed and moved towards the huge sliding barn door. They stood among the four-wheelers, positioned to drive out. We have to get out of here, Joe said. Let's fire up the quads and drive away, Aiden suggested. Especially now, whatever's out there is still on the other side. What if it attracts it? Hudson asked. Well, we're sitting ducks here. They all hopped on and got ready to fire up the machines. There were only 3, so Aiden and Nick sat on one, Hudson and Joe took another, and James went solo. On the count of 3, they were supposed to fire the engines and James would slide the door open, letting them all out. James raised his hand and held up the fingers quietly. 1, 2, he paused. The banging had stopped. They all noticed it now. Suddenly, an incredibly loud cracking noise came from the other side of the barn. "It's breaking through the boards! Go!" Aiden shouted. The engine burst to life and the sliding door was thrown open. They all ripped out of the barn and into the night. Without planning, they split up. James took a hard right and flew back towards the cabin. Hudson and Joe went left, up the hill, over to the cabin. Aiden and Nick ripped over the edge of the hill, down and along the tree line. "Where are you going? Camp is up the hill, not down," Nick shouted over the roaring 65-mile-per-hour winds. "I have a plan. I'm going to loop down around the front of the cabin," Aiden yelled. Their shirts flapped in the wind and their eyes dribbled tears from the speed as Aiden guided them all the way to the bottom of the main hill, along the rock wall now. They were parallel to the cabin, but about a quarter-mile away. They raced over barks and dodged dead plants. Nick saw it first. Couldn't make out any detail, but cutting through the dead blueberry bushes was the creature. It shook them as it ran, like the night air itself. He could only keep track of it by the rustling. The hulking mass was bathed in orange, like everything else, by the moon. It was too fast to be a bear, and it lacked the antlers of a moose. "Look out," Nick pointed. Aiden saw it as he slid to the back of the four-wheeler to make a 90-degree turn towards the cabin. It was getting closer. They both held on tight as the vehicle jumped up and down over the rolling hill, climbing towards the cabin. The creature turned too. It looked like it was trying to intercept their anger. Suddenly, out of the thickets, popped a long, 5 or more feet knobby arm and lashed at them. They ducked and zipped by it narrowly, but the creature pulled its whole body from the bushes and broke into a 4-legged sprint behind them. As they started to approach the final hill, the steepest of them, Nick started to yell again. "It's gaining on us." "I have an idea," Aiden yelled back. "At this speed, we're either going to launch over that cliff or smash into it. If we clear it, the quad is going to be airborne. We're going to have to jump off it, bail, and run for the door. Okay? Get ready." With no time for response, Nick braced himself for an impact. The suspension on the front wheels sank as they rammed the steep grade, but they cleared and ramped up it. When they reached the top, Aiden yelled, "Now!" They both dove to the right and slammed into the ground hard. Before they could even get to their feet, the creature soared headlong over them. A block of dark, matted fur almost brushed them. They scrambled up and ran for the door, past the other parked four-wheelers. Looking back, theirs plummeted to the ground and bounced. They rolled ahead a little more, and the creature pounced on it. They ran straight into the open door before it turned its head, looking for them. Inside, they ran into Hudson and James as Joe slammed the door and bolted it shut. The 3 already inside slid a cabinet in front of the door, and James used a screwdriver to bolt it to the wall. They hustled away to the back of the main floor. Nick and Aiden looked around, out of breath. All the windows on the floor had been given a similar treatment. Everything was boarded up, and chairs and tables and a couch formed a huge barricade against the front glass. "Oh my God, that thing was gigantic," Nick said. "It's a good thing you guys saw us coming," Aiden followed. "We sealed everything already, doors and windows," James said. "What are we going to do about that thing? It's going to kill us," Hudson said. They all took a moment to fully realize that they were being hunted by some sort of mythical forest-dwelling creature. Aiden broke the silence. "Maybe you could kill it instead." "How would we do that?" Joe asked. "The place is your uncle's. They gotta have a gun locker in the basement. There's gotta be something good in there." The others offered little, so they went downstairs. Cautiously, they turned the corner towards the stairs. Everything was still. Double bunk bed and a wall of old snowmobile helmets took up the tiny section of the basement. "Great. They were actually responsible and locked it. How are we going to get this thing open?" Joe asked. James walked over and picked up a stuffed squirrel statue off the top of the tall gun locker. It looked funny, posing with an acorn. He turned it over with his hands. That's how, I guess, he said. On the bottom was a code in blue pen ink. They punched the numbers in and turned the handle, swinging open the door. Inside was one 6-hour XM250, a belt-fed light machine gun designed for the U.S. military. Holy hell, that's illegal to own, Aiden said in awe. Joe hoisted the thing and turned it over in his hands. Wow, that's awesome, but I'm not going to go out there and shoot that thing. It'd probably still kill me with 200 rounds. He handed it to Aiden. No way, man. This thing would definitely get it done. Listen, pretty much every horror movie ever could be solved with one of these. I could definitely kill that thing with this. Nuh-uh, I don't believe it. That monster is like a creature of the night. It's probably a spirit or something. There's no way bullets could stop it, Nick protested. I think we should find out. No reason to hide out here until it kills us. I'm going out. Are you crazy? You're gonna die, Hudson said. Aiden, we only have to survive till sunrise, James said. Like FNAF, we don't need to go out. Can you unbarricade that door over there? Aiden pointed the gun to signify which one. I got you, man. That's all you, Joe said as he started to move piled furniture. The rest of them hustled upstairs, casting their doubts and fears. Joe got ready to swing open the door. Aiden nodded and Joe slipped it open. Charging outside, Aiden yelled as loud as he could. He swerved his head in every direction looking for the beast. Suddenly he spotted it. It was darting at him from the front of the building. He locked the gun in the crusher's shoulder and started firing. Fully automatic, bullets flew rapidly in the flashing light cut into the orange glow of the night. The creature roared loudly. The noise sounded like it was full of hatred. Blood curdling and ground shaking at the same time, the noise cut through the walls and even hit those watching from inside the cabin. On hooves or mashed fingers, it ran at Aiden, and the bullets seemed to slow it down, but it did not bleed. It reached him, stood upright, and tore his head from his body with its appendages, before its long snout unhinged, bearing many hundreds of gnashing teeth, and chewed him to shreds. Before they could see the pulp and spittle Aiden was reduced to, a group of them rebarricaded the door. They were horrified. Without missing a beat, they hurried upstairs and slammed the door. I think I'm gonna be sick, Hudson cried. Oh my god, Nick moaned, pressing his hand to his forehead. We need to hide, James said plainly. I'm going upstairs. He turned and took off. I'm taking this with me, Joe said, before smashing the glass box above the doorway. Inside was an antique saber and a musket. He pulled the saber off the hooks and discarded the finely adorned scabbard. The sword was real and sharp. I've always wanted to hold this, he said. Hudson and Nick both ran upstairs. Joe made for the viewing room that faced down the hill. Normally, it was all windows, so you could see the entire property and much beyond. Now, there were piles of furniture blocking all of them in. He went to the far back and hunkered down. I'm ready. Please let this sword be some sort of magic artifact or something that can slay demons, he whispered to himself. It did have engravings he couldn't read on it, but they looked more French than German. This might not be old enough for that, he worried. Nothing happened for quite some time. All was still and stiff with fear. The air was heavy in the unventilated rooms. Upstairs, something shifted. Nick braced himself for something. Anything, really. Nick, a voice called out. Jesus, Hudson, is that you? He responded. Yeah, Hudson said. I didn't even know you were here. You must have come into this bedroom right after me, Nick admitted, his fear dissipating a little. I followed you, yeah. It's been a while. Don't you think we're safe now? Hudson asked. Nah. That thing could still be out there. And it's almost sunrise. But there's still the time. An hour or two, he said. Hudson responded. I can see through this window a little. I've been watching and I haven't seen that thing in a long time. I can see the four-wheelers. I might try to make a run for it. No way. Hudson, don't do it, man. That's not gonna work, Nick rebutted. I can't stand this waiting. I have to. I really think I can make it. Hudson pried the bed out of the way of the window and slowly opened it. He poked his head out and looked around. There was nothing out there, except the drop to the ground. It was only about 10 feet. That was farther than he had ever dropped. He wasn't thinking straight, though, so he quickly lowered himself out and hit the ground. He hit hard and stood up and started looking towards the four-wheelers. Nick went over to the window, totally shocked. "Oh my God, Hudson, no!" he whispered to himself. He watched in horrific anticipation as Hudson climbed onto a four-wheeler. Nick's stomach turned as Hudson started the machine, the engine firing up loudly, but nothing came. Hudson pressed the throttle and ripped down the driveway. Nick watched him until he disappeared behind the trees. "No way," he gasped. Nick looked around. He waited for a while longer, but nothing stirred. "Hudson, you crazy fool, you might have just figured it out. I'm coming too," he said before lowering himself up the window. He landed a little more gracefully and sprinted to the last remaining four-wheeler. Before he could even take a seat, the beast sprang on him and tore him into agonizing shreds. Joe clutched the sword tighter as he heard some screaming coming from outside. What was going on out there? Had someone tried to leave? The screams reduced to silence, and Joe went back to sitting, painfully still in the corner. More time passed. Joe found himself awake again. He hadn't even realized he'd fallen asleep. But now he was awake, and he wasn't sure why. Something felt different. He strained his eyes and saw nothing. He listened and heard something, scraping. It was low and coarse sounding. He wasn't sure where it was coming from, but it felt near. He placed his hand flat on the hardwood floor. He could feel it. It was below him. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. Then, the scraping stopped. With a terrifying crack, the floor in front of him burst open as a limb plunged through it. It was headed by a half-hoof, half-accursed forefinger. The abomination's arm reached in and crashed against the ground opposite Joe, trapping him at the end of the room. It broke the floor, opening a massive hole into the open air. The room was built on stilts for a better view. The hole widened as the massive creature dragged itself through, thrashing and throwing chunks of wood. Joe could see it in its entirety. The main body of the flying thing was around 12 feet long and built much like a moose, with ragged, blood-soaked, matted hair. Its face was that of some unknown entity, both snout and hanging with jowls. Its teeth showed even when its mouth was closed. Its arms were as long as Joe was tall, and quickly they swung at him. There were so many features he could not take in. Putrid odor, the other orifices, the waggling worm-like cancers that hung from it, and almost grasped at him before the thing hit him. He knocked him against the wall and retracted his arm. It was too big for this room and could not stand, so it swung again, and Joe swung too. The blade connected with the beast, and its bellowing, multi-toned voice cracked as its extended forefinger fell from its hand. It recoiled, but then swung again. This time, the blade met bone within the arm, and Joe had the saber jerked out of his hands. "No," he yelled, but the beast sent its other arm at him. It grabbed him and reeled him close to the gaping mouth as he struggled. Joe was able to take the sword back from its place embedded in the other arm and hacked at its lapping tongue. It sliced and fell off. He swung again and again, hacking at the face. It seemed to do little more damage. The gaping maw consumed him. James huddled in his fortified bunker. He had blocked his door, but he knew too well it could be breached. He waited, and eventually the screaming ended. Then, the downstairs floor began to creak. The creaking made its way to the stairs. James almost thought he could hear some sort of sniffing. Eventually, he knew it was on his floor. He could hear the beast near slithering now in the hallway. It would stop and sniff for a long, long time. Then he would hear the shattering of a door. Each time it found nothing, it squealed with anger. Now, he could hear it sniffing outside his door. He froze. The sniffing was loud, drawn out inhales. They got slower and slower. He didn't dare move a muscle in anticipation. It felt like an eternity on edge. He just kept waiting for it to break through the door. Eventually, it stopped sniffing. He braced himself for what he knew was coming. He was as ready as he could be. The arm shot through the pine door panels. "Ah!" James yelled. He tore down one of his fences as he struggled to open the nearest window to him. He wouldn't be trapped in here with that thing. It squirmed towards him, foul-smelling and breathing heavy. as he opened the window and jumped out. His feet connected immediately with the roof shingles. He was on top of the cover to the walkway entrance. He looked around and jumped to the main roof, climbing up it. It was almost light out. Behind him, the creature bellowed and blasted through the window. It fell on the shingles and straightened itself out, moving up the roof towards James. There was nowhere to go. James was out of time, but he heard something. The creature heard it too, and turned to look. Down the road came a four-wheeler and a dozen vehicles. A bullet whizzed by James, so he hit the deck. A rain of fire erupted from out of the vehicles, peppering the roaring beast, who rose to its full, terrifying height. The ammunition cut into it, tearing holes through the thing. It bled this time. Wounded, it jumped from the roof and returned to its sprint on all fours. He raced down the hill, through the bushes, and eventually into the woods, all while being shot at. James was saved. By the time he was helped down and wrapped in a blanket by a paramedic, the sun had risen and Hudson was beside him. "Hudson," James said, "how did you do it? How did you get all these people here, and where have you been?" "Oh, I took off on a four-wheeler hours ago. I went straight to the Pines Market because I knew they were open all the time now, 24/7. I told them about the beast, and they knew about it. I guess everybody in Eustis does," Hudson answered. "So how did they defeat it with bullets? Aiden's didn't work," James asked. They needed to be blessed, hemlock-dipped, silver bullets. They all had some. Folks at the Pines went around and just woke everybody up. They gathered them, we all came here. Looks like I was just in time. Where's everybody else?" Hudson asked. I think it's just you and me now," James said. It was then that they decided never again to visit the town of Eustis, Maine. Hudson and James went on to live happy, mostly demon-free lives. The end.
Maybe Hudson's first ever successful escape.
Potentially. That was awesome, Joe.
Yeah, like there was a very good concept as well. As soon as you mentioned the barn being way older than the cabin, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. The Eustis one was smart. And I like the pair-ups were non-traditional as well. Like whoever had Joe and Aiden pairing up on the bingo card lost that one.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, and then, I like how Hudson came back. I wonder if he was going to come back or if he was going to like actually get eaten later or what was going on. But I like how Hudson and James were the survivors. It's a wild card duo.
Yeah. They survived.
That's what I was thinking.
Hey, listen.
Just like Fortnite.
Yeah, I saw Lumpy come on screen. I got really distracted.
My story is called Into the Hollow. It was a brisk autumn afternoon, kind of day perfect for carving some jack-o'-lanterns. James, Nick, Kendra, Hudson, and Joe sat in the cool backyard grass getting ready to work on their carvings. The smell of pumpkins takes over the air as the first knife dives into the pumpkin. "Man, these pumpkins are huge and shaped perfectly," Hudson blurted. "Where did you even get these, James?" "They were free off a Facebook marketplace," James eagerly started. "The guy grew too many and no one was buying them at his farm stand." "Why was no one buying them at his farm stand? These pumpkins look great," Joe questioned. Well, he kinda lives in the middle of nowhere. I had to drive 3 hours there to get them," responded James. "You drove 6 hours to get some pumpkins? They sell them at Walmart for like $4, Nick yapped. "First of all, you're talking to the guy that drove 10 hours for some watermelon. But anyways, have you seen these Walmart pumpkins? They are tiny and always bruised. Plus, I'll go pick up anything if it's free," argued James. "He's not wrong," Kendra chimed in. "Those pumpkins are always rotten within the week." Everyone collectively nodded their heads and went back to working on their carvings. "What are you guys gonna cut into your pumpkins?" Joe asked the group. "Snoopy," says Nick. "I'm carving pumpkin on the pumpkin," replies Kendra. I'm going to carve Peter Griffin," James said, grinning as he dug into the pumpkin. Some time passed as laughter and the scraping of knives filled the yard. The pumpkin looked just like Peter. Glasses, happy smile, and a friendly look. But as James reached inside to scoop up the last of the seeds, his fingers brushed against something hard. He froze. Guys?" "What is it?" Hudson asked, peering over. James pulled out a small, rolled-up piece of parchment. "I don't know, it was inside the pumpkin." He unrolled it carefully. The paper was old, with edges frayed and slightly burned. Drawn on it was a map, crude but detailed, with a winding path leading deep into the forest. At the end of the path, there was something marked with a jagged, almost tooth-like symbol. Dude, that's insane. Is this some Halloween prank? Joe asked, eyes wide. Kendra shook her head. This is way too detailed for a prank. Look, there are landmarks, like the old oak tree by the tennis courts, and the big rock shaped like the wolf. That's real. Are you guys seriously thinking we follow it? Nick said, half joking. James's grin widened. Of course I am. This is way better than carving pumpkins. By late afternoon, the group had packed flashlights, snacked, and a sense of nervous excitement filled the air. The map led them through the crisp and crunchy leaf forest. The landmarks appeared exactly as John. The gnarled oak, the moss-covered rocks, and the babbling creek. Hey, this is just like Craig of the Creek, Nick said excitedly. Nick and Joe high-fived. As they ventured deep into the woods, the afternoon sun went away, and the woods became even more dim. The path finally ended at the mouth of a dark cave, shrouded in mist and shadow. This is creepy, Hudson whispered, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. Perfect, James said, after already stepping forward with a flashlight. Inside the cave was cold and damp, the air thick with the smell of earth and something else, something faintly metallic. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like jagged teeth, and the beam of their flashlights revealed a large cavern with small tunnels breaking off to the side. Hudson shivered. Maybe we should turn back. No way, Joe said, voice low with a mix of fear and awe. This is what the map was leading us to. We have to see it through. The group hesitated at the entrance, the sound of dripping water echoing like distant footsteps as they ventured deeper. Did anyone else hear that? Nick asked, clutching Kendra's arm. It's probably just the wind, Joe said, though his voice trembled. As they pressed deeper into the cave, the walls narrowed, forcing them to squeeze past jagged rocks. The air grew colder, heavier, and dripping water sounded like 1,000 tiny footsteps right around them. Shadows twisted unnaturally in the beam of their flashlights, stretching and shrinking just like living things. Suddenly, from one of the side tunnels, a low, rasping growl echoed. The group froze. Hudson's breath came out in short, panicked gasps. Maybe we should go back now, Nick whispered, eyes wide, his voice barely above a tremble. Before anyone could respond, a figure launched from the shadows. It was humanoid but grotesque, pale, hairless, elongated limbs, and claws sharp enough to cut through flesh. It grabbed Hudson, dragging him screaming into the darkness. His cries echoed, then abruptly stopped. The others turned their flashlight toward the tunnel, but it was empty, save for slick footsteps leading deeper into the cavern. Hudson, Kedja screamed, reaching for him, but Nick grabbed her arm. We have to keep moving, James said, forcing calm in his voice, though his own hands were trembling. As they stumbled forward, more figures emerged from the shadows, their glowing amber eyes reflecting the flashlight beams. They moved silently, their joints clicking at unnatural angles. Joe tripped over a jagged rock and fell hard, scraping his arm. A creature slithered close, its fingers brushing his shoulder, but James shoved him forward into the narrow passage just in time. This is insane, James. Why did you bring us here? Joe shouted, panic making his voice break. James didn't answer. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber. Pools of dark, stagnant water reflected the pale figures around them. The whispering then started, low and impossible to localize, rising and falling like voices coming from the walls. Guys, I don't like this, Kendra whispered, her voice trembling. Before anyone could respond, the floor beneath Kendra cracked. She screamed as she fell into the shallow pit. The water at the bottom rippled, and then a thin, grotesque hand crawled out, snatched her into the darkness. Nick lunged forward, but the end crumbled beneath him, and a creature dragged him into the darkness of the pit with Kendra. His scream joined hers, echoing across the chamber. Joe backed away, terrified, but a figure appeared directly in front of him, its glowing eyes fixed on him, and it hissed. It sounded like broken glass against stone. Joe stumbled backward into a pool of black water. Something grabbed his ankle, pulling him under. He thrashed and screamed, but the black water swallowed him whole. Silence followed, except for the whispering, now louder and almost chanting. James stood alone in the chamber, heart racing. This isn't real, right? He muttered to himself, though his pulse sounded just like a drum. He raised his hands, and there it was, a VR headset, glowing in his palms. His grin widened. Relax, everyone, it's just a game. Suddenly, the cave and creatures disappeared, or at least James saw it disappear. The walls melted away, replaced by the familiar dim light of the basement. Hudson was slumped on the couch, pale but very much alive. Kendra, Nick, and Joe were all there too, shaking violently. What happened? Kendra gasped. James laughed. You guys should have seen your face. Free VR headset from Facebook Marketplace. It comes with the most realistic horror simulation ever. The guy who gave me the pumpkin said I could just have it. Joe wiped sweat from his forehead. You nearly gave us heart attacks. James shrugged. Hey, free VR, totally worth it. Kendra crossed her arms, trembling. You are so dead next time. Nick groaned. Next time, I'm never trusting you and your free items. Hudson muttered under his breath, still pale. My heart is still racing. James sat down, slipping the headset back into his bag. Guys, come on, it's Halloween. You can't get scared unless you let yourself. They all glared at him, still angry. So wait, did we not even carve pumpkins? Joe asked. Nope, just part of the simulation, James says. And what are those over there? Hudson said, pointing to our freshly carved pumpkins. The silence became loud, and the whispers of the cave returned. The end.
That's cool. Hey, I like that. There's a lot more Facebook Marketplace mentionings now. I wish I put that on my
I can't believe you did.
I also like fake out and then the like return to fake out.
Yeah. Right, that was the whole thing. Like, oh, was it real? You know.
James went a total different direction than I expected. I loved it. Though.
I had no idea.
It was so crazy. It was just so wild. So bonkers. This is Terror Tales 5, The Bat Party. Greetings and salutations, my friends, and welcome to another Terror Tales written by yours truly. I'd like to settle you all in a different story from my previous works. We're all at a party about Batman. Recently, my fascination has been Batman has struck like gold, and it was exciting. Let me invite you to relax, have something nice to drink, and enjoy the stupidly fun and perhaps spooky Terror Tale to share this time. It was Halloween, October 31st. I dressed up as Batman with my hopes for finding the 1989 Batman suit, but instead I could only find his first Detective Comics run outfit, with the purplish pink gloves and the sharp tall cowl, as well as the uncomfortably hot clothes. I had been hiding in the dark most of the night, waiting for as my guests arrived at the rented out Airbnb. Kendra, James, Nick, and Joe all came in, with the late arrival of guest Eden. I had asked them all to dress as some kind of Batman character. Joe came in as Two-Face, and Kendra dressed as a Batgirl, while unsurprisingly to everyone, Nick dressed up as Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond. My older brother Finn ran in with a large smile as he wore a green bowler hat and a full green tux and purple glasses with frosted lenses. His coat was riddled with, well, question marks, as he also had question mark Kane with him. Who are you supposed to be? Joe asked, flipping his lucky coin as the character would. I'm the Riddler. I can make riddles. I'm the master of this game we shall play. But there's no barn with no hay. Good one, Eden said, entering the door. His dyed green hair and purple jacket should give the idea who he was. The lights dimmed as I, or James, wasn't there yet. James ran in dressed as Robin, and he was my sidekick for the night. Have you guys seen Hudson yet? James asked. I'm right here, I said in the shadows. My costume looked a lot better than it had originally when I put it on. Holy crap! I didn't see you, man. Like, wow, Joe said for the first time ever, shocked to see where I may have hidden myself. You couldn't see my piercing blue eyes through the mask. The frosted one-way glass was big enough that I could even put my glasses behind it. Finn laughed a little. You just don't fit that role, is all. How could you be Batman? He snorted, laughing a little, fitting yet again into his character as being the Riddler. He can be who he wants. It's his party, Joe commented back at Finn, flicking his coin up and catching it. It may be your party, but that doesn't mean I couldn't have booby-trapped the place already, Finn said, holding 6 separate cards with question marks on them, handing them to each of them before taking a step back, crossing his arms, and smiling. I looked at Nick, giving me a little go-along-with-it look to me. Kendra and Nick stayed close together, while James and I looked at our cards. They each had a name on them. James and I had already created an alliance and had been talking about our plans for weeks at this point. Our duo should put the end to Phineas's nefarious, negligent plans. I walked around thinking of what could possibly go on. Joe and Aiden had already raided the fridge and could care less about the question mark cards. Finn stood around a little longer and then asked, Is everyone ready to start? This shouldn't take all that long, so you may rest your little heart. As I've already gotten into character, making myself the villain of this shindig, we don't want this ending in a massacre. The hell? Joe and Aiden said synchronously. The lights turned off and the green question marks began to show everyone, sloppily warped on by the wood that they were painted on. Nick and Kendra began to look for clues based on their cards. Every card had something different. The house boomed with loud classical music, but it wasn't any kind of music. It was the instrumental with none other than the classic Broadway of Finn's choosing, Les Miserables. It echoed through the manor ominously. You know what's funny? Is that Finn doesn't scare me in the slightest. How do you think that he'll make a terrifying time? Eden said, opening and closing his butterfly knife, swinging it before it sliced his glove open. That was close. Almost lost a finger, Eden said, as he wiped his dyed green brows. Joe looked at him. I think you still got yourself. He pointed to Aiden's blood-dripping finger. Relax, it's just ketchup, he laughed maniacally as a Joker tone. Gross, but cool, Joe agreed, flipping his coin over and over again until Aiden looked at him, his eyes wide and bloodshot, watching Joe flip his sacred coin, pushing him to make him lose attention. The coin flipped at its last flip as it slipped right into the crack of the old manor. What the hell, man? That was like my prized possession, my lucky coin! He fell to his knees looking around on the floorboards, his hands scrambling, eating splinters all through his fingers, looking at them, weeping as they poked out like porcupine quills. Joe gripped his hands, enduring the pain before grabbing Aiden by his shirt collars, shaking him roughly up and down as he looked disheveled. Relax, it's just a goof, it's just a prank. Nothing that big of a deal, shake on it, Aiden said before revealing his hand buzzer. Joe smartly looked at it and smacked his hand away, calming himself down from his hysterics. Get that hand out of my way. I have half the mind to smack you silly, he grumbled, pulling out his splinters before socking a large punch into Aiden's gut. Oof! Aiden reacted. Joe looked back at his riddle card, walking past Aiden before shaking his head a little bit of distrust, looking back at Aiden. I can't believe you did that, Joe said, incredibly upset. I just want you to know how dumb that was. You basically put that target on your back, Joe said, his voice grumbling more in a deeper tone, almost with a bass behind it. I can't flip the coin to decide your fate. Joe was cut off by squirting of Aiden's flour on his coat. He hopped up and down, laughing really hard. Joe looked around around to grasp his surroundings, feeling the gun-shaped item in his pocket before pointing it at Aiden, clenching the trigger tightly. Aiden glanced at him. Go ahead, do it! Aiden said, leaning into the barrel, his forehead pressed against it. Nick walked in with Kendra, who looked confused. Hey, whoa! Kendra shouted a little, stepping back towards Nick before Joe clicked the trigger and a big flag attached to his stick came out and said, Bang! You're dead! On it. Joe looked upset, as Aiden erupted in laughter before having a coughing fit as Joe choked him. Leave them be, I'm sure they'll solve the riddle in an hour, Finn said, over the intercom, laughing a little. Meanwhile, James and I were scouting the house. By golly, Hudson. Look at this, James said, smirking and handing me a picture. The picture contained a frame of a full crowd. Various people were in it, including the Family Guy, American Dad, Cleveland Brown Show, Orville creator, Seth MacFarlane. No way. We both looked at the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, this point onwards, we will have a celebrity narrate our story, James says, as we both bow, before Seth MacFarlane walks into the scene. Hello, I'm Seth MacFarlane. You may know me of various adult animated series as well as playing Klaus in Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. As well as playing almost every other character in all three of my shows. We take this next act into a rather different approach, including Phineas's riddles being solved by Hudson, James, and yours truly, as Aiden and Joe continue to battle it out. I don't want to cut any content in this delicious 5th anniversary Terror Tale, but I want to give some background going forward. Finn's riddles were each designed for all the members. Kendra and Nick's were designed to find some apricots and pumpkins, giving the key to their success. Joe and Aiden failed because they were supposed to actually go underneath this manor and find Joe's lucky coin and repair their friendship. Finn predicted that all of this would happen. And inside that picture frame James and Hudson found a key with a question behind the picture. Isn't that neat? So, this next part, Hudson and James dash into the kitchen and confront Finn with his finished riddle. Seth MacFarlane steps away as the curtains close. Family Guy cut back jingle. We've solved your dastardly plans, Finn. James and I will always beat you, I say, jumping into the light, pointing at him. Nick and Kendra bolt in afterwards after solving theirs too. Lastly is Joe and Aiden, who still brawled in the other room as the timer finally dings. It's too late. 2 of you are not finished with it yet. Finn said, and we looked around before hearing the senseless beating up of Joe and Aiden. We all felt our hearts drop before Joe and Aiden stopped fighting to see what was up. Wait, where's the clue card? Where'd it go? Joe asked as Aiden put away his lighter. I burned it into ash earlier, Aiden smirked as he trotted off into the kitchen. As Joe still looked for his coin, Nick and Kendra and James and I were safe. We had no idea what Finn had planned. What's going on? What's going to happen then? I asked. The doors closed and locked around Joe and Aiden. Nothing. They just weren't winners. What did you think? I'd kill them? He cackled loudly before James and I ran to the locked doors trying to get them open to let Aiden and Joe back in. You're sick! James shouted to Finn before running over and trying to attack him. Finn dodged back again and hopping each time until he slammed his back against the wall and James grabbed his cane and snapped it. James! I said, as I tried holding him back. Kendra and Nick just watched before Finn got up. I paid $10 for that cane. You owe me, he said, picking up the broken pieces and swinging them back and forth at James and I. We mercifully dodged and synchronized as we basically danced around the kitchen before Nick watched, and Kendra jumped in, grabbing Finn's hands and tying them behind his back. We know what your plan is, and we're going to stop it now, Nick said, as he leaped and tied his legs together after Kendra. There was a switch behind Finn, which James and I pressed, and opened the door to reveal Joe and Aiden laying there in their own pile of sweat, half of their clothes ripped off, and it was about 100 degrees in the locked room. They both picked themselves up and looked at us. "I can't continue. I can't do this. I can't do it," Joe said as he socked Aiden in the jaw and kicked the front door down. "I want to go home," Joe yelled as he ran outside, becoming frozen in stone, as well as Aiden, who followed him. They lost the game," Finn said, also being taken out into the outside. It was both petrified, turned into stone. Finn continued to laugh as he turned into stone. "Well, that's not where I expected it to go," I said, looking at Nick. "Joe's gone," he said in sudden shock. "There's gotta be a way we can reverse this," Kendra said, laying her hand on his defeated shoulder. I don't know how I don't think there's a way we could. I think we'll have to find someone who could cure this, and we can go home," Nick said, looking at the statue of Joe before swinging his arm at it and it crumbled to dust. "This has got to be some sick game," Nick shouted, upset. "Like, what do they say on the Airbnb listing, Hudson? Come on, man." I looked at Nick. We all looked at each other, the four of us. It had said to stay in the house the whole time, and if we were to take a foot outside of the mansion, we'd turn to stone. "Must have been in the fine print," I commented. "It looked like we were trapped in here forever." "We should make the best of this. Let's play Chutes and Ladders," James suggested, smiling awkwardly, and Nick and I wiped a single tear that welled up before looking at James and saying, "Yeah, let's do that," he said. The curtain closed.
You rented the Airbnb to turn Aiden and I into stone.
Typical.
Why would you do this?
I like how you took the time at that point to explain some of the backstory behind Finn's strategies there in the middle of the story. I also like Finn as the Riddler villain.
Yeah, Joe, I'm sure you liked yours as Two-Face because you got, your lucky coin. Do you have it with you right now?
I do actually. My friends happen to have it with me. As per usual.
Perfect. Yes.
Did you like it, Kendra?
I did like it, yeah.
Oh, Kendra didn't like it at all?
I actually hated it. It's called Total Spiral. Aw man, I got barbecue sauce on my invitation, Nick said, frowning at the decorated paper in his hands. Naturally, today is Thursday, the day Buffalo Wild Wings has a deal on chicken wings. Nick can never seem to pass that up. "Hey buddy, check your shirt," said Hudson with a smug grin. I sat back in my chair, admiring the fact that Nick can never avoid spilling sauce on himself. A few days ago, we received an invitation to a Hallows Eve party hosted by one of Nick's coworkers from Books A Million. She's new to town and is hoping to meet people in the area. Beside the barbecue sauce, the invitation reads that we're supposed to arrive at 7:40 p.m. on 1400 Vestibule Drive. The address was within walking distance of the house, so we all started walking over once we had our costumes sorted out. Joe, James, and Finn were supposed to walk over with us, but they each had their own engagements before the party. "There they are," Nick yelled. James had crafted an elaborate costume that mimicked Peter Griffin working a hot dog cart. And Finn was dressed as Charlie Brown. Joe seemed to have forgotten a costume. Nick was dressed as the main character from Vagabond, Hudson the Little Caesars guy, and I modeled my costume after No Face and Spirited Away. "Well, now that we're all here, I suppose we should head inside," Nick said. We all started to walk up and were met with two large gargoyles lining the front door. Decorations were askew above the dark wooden door, almost seeming tacky in my opinion. The house was large and expansive with at least 100-acre yard. The house jutted out in castle-like formations on all sides. Each seemed to be larger and taller than the last, adorned with more stone statues. Across the way there was a familiar house with a pumpkin patch just beside the house. "I remember that house," said James. "My best experiment yet. Marketplace never disappoints." Hudson shuddered, remembering the rubber duck that became his downfall. They all walked into the house and were immediately greeted by someone in a Dracula costume. The main room of the house resembled a ballroom with a grand staircase in the center. The staircase was split in two at the landing, one side decorated with carved pumpkins, the other side displaying a large cauldron and beakers fizzing with potion. James wheeled in with his hot dog cart, and about 10 people rushed over to him, in awe of his costume. Finn saw a few people that he recognized and started making his way around to speak to them. Nick's coworker found us in the crowd and thanked us for coming, extending her hand for an introductory shake. She wore a long, flowy black dress encompassed in sparkles that gleamed silver. I reached up to shake her hand, and as she pulled away, I could feel a slip of paper in my palm. She was whisked away before I could ask about the note. The slip of paper didn't have words, rather it showed a picture of a bookcase filled with books and a small vacant space in the center. I showed Nick the note, and he didn't know what to think of it. "I don't know her very well, so that's a little strange," he said. "We work at a bookstore, I guess, but I don't see why that needs to be a note," he added. I looked at the picture and searched for any indication of what this might mean, but nothing stood out to me. No titles on the spines or any sort of design anywhere. Feeling a little eerie, I tucked the paper into my pocket along with the gold nuggets that go with my costume. People flooded into the main room and congregated towards the middle, where punch bowls and assorted cookies lined a large rectangular table. To the left of the table sat a myriad of Halloween-themed games. To my surprise, no one seemed to be dancing or playing games. Rather, everyone stood in groups and chatted. "This party blows," Joe said in Nick's ear, Coke in hand, which he must have brought himself as the party only served punch. "I guess we could look around since there's not much going on down here," Nick responded. Nick and Joe rounded everyone up for an adventure, save for Finn, who was enthralled in a conversation with someone in a BMO costume. James wheeled his hot dog cart up the stairs, and we all followed suit. "So, we could go down the hallway. With the cauldrons or the pumpkins? What does everyone think?" I asked, eyeing the cauldrons from the staircase. "In my experience, every good idea starts with cauldrons," James said. Hudson stood in the center of the staircase, seemingly pondering the logic of the previous statement. "Well, since we're all in agreement, we'll go the pumpkin way," Nick exclaimed. I glanced back toward the party, wondering if anyone would notice we left the ballroom. It seems not even Finn would notice as he meandered around the party, finding friends in every face. The now group of 5 headed down the hallway in stride. Lined with pumpkins, the expansive hall turned into a large study. Oak doors stood impressively in front of them, and they each wondered who would dare to open them. A door knocker decorated each panel in the shape of a lion's head, and an oval attached to where the tongue would be. "Alright guys, let's get back to the party," Hudson said, glancing toward the other side of the hall. "We made it this far, we should just check out the inside," Nick said in response as he made for the door and tugged at the doorknob. With a slight creak, the doors opened. The smell of dust and old books hit me in the face before I even set foot into the study. The room opened up to a large desk and leather chairs, surrounded by cases of books. I soon realized that the room extended to the left side, where a large spiral staircase emerged. Without question, everyone headed up the stairs. Up and up the stairs went, revealing more books as we went up. Finally, the stairs reached a landing. A balcony revealed the floor of the study which we came from. At least 50 feet separated us, but climbing the stairs didn't feel that long. "How's your hot dog cart holding up, James?" I asked. "Well, it's doing all right, even with the stairs," James said proudly. Joe started pacing around the landing, looking for any interesting books on the shelves. He read off a few titles, mostly classics, seemed to take over the shelves. Crime and Punishment, Persuasion, Catch-22, and wait, the whole Branzino? Joe exclaimed. Nick and Hudson burst out in laughter. Joe, with a sour expression, flipped through the book. I walked along the bookcases and noticed a break between 2 of them. As any curious person would do, I pushed the bookcases apart, revealing another room. To my surprise, another staircase emerged on the right side of the room. I called everyone over, and we all stared at the staircase. "Can your cart handle another staircase?" I asked James. He nodded in agreement, and we went on our way. "I don't know, guys, I think we should go back," Hudson said to the group. Worry coated his face. "I'm heading up the stairs. Either you stop being a baby or you stay here," Nick said. Hudson begrudgingly started up the stairs. Up and up we traveled until we again reached a landing. There was no balcony on this landing, so we would not see how high up we really were. Bookcases lined the walls, and suddenly I saw something very familiar. I reached into my pocket and grabbed the note from earlier, lining up the note with the bookcase in front of me. They were identical. I said to Nick, showing him the note from earlier. How would she know that we're going to end up here? Nick asked. Maybe the note influenced which direction we would go, said Hudson with a shrug. We all went over to the bookcase and immediately reached for the books to see what they were. No titles, no cover art, nothing on the books to indicate the contents. The books looked fairly aged, but still good condition. The covers were of brown leather, braids holding up together the sides, and slate scratches taking up the surface of each one. The books were of equal size and filled the entire shelf, save for the gap in the middle. Joe reached for a book on the high shelf and found that they were immovable. Hudson reached for the lower shelf and had the same result. Nick went for the middle and pulled off a book. Okay, Nick questioned. We huddled around Nick as he held the book. He seemed slightly nervous as he opened the first page. The page had a series of numbers and letters resembling some type of code. Anyone know how to decipher that? I asked. No clue, Nick said. Season 18, episode 15 of Family Guy, James said with a smile on his face. Does that have anything to do with this? Nick asked. Well, not really. They use Fibonacci's code to figure out missing numbers in an escape room. Seems kinda similar, he asked. Maybe it's not even a riddle, I said. What if there just wasn't a title for it yet? Nick thought. I suppose, he said with a finger on his chin. Let me see that, Hudson demanded. Nick handed over the book. Hudson studied the page and opened the book directly from the middle. I don't see how. In less than a second, a hand tore through the page and grabbed Hudson by the throat, taking him into the book. The book dropped to the floor with a thud and shut closed. Holy fuck, said Joe, grabbing his head in his hands. What was that? Nick immediately went to grab for the book and noticed there was now a title on the side. The Hudson Files, an autobiography. We each exchanged questioning looks, and I grabbed the book from Nick. I opened to the middle where we all saw the hand emerged. There Hudson was, in print, running with his Little Caesars costume on. Well, no doubt that's him now, Nick said. The whole thing is freaky. How are we supposed to get him out without also getting taken into the book ourselves? James asked. Maybe we can find something to hit the hand with if it pops out again, Joe said. The page was blank, other than the panel of Hudson in the center. He looked to be drawn in the style of an old comic book. Was that there before? Joe asked, pointing to the top of the page. Certainly not, Nick replied. The panel above Hudson showed him at the party an hour before, chatting to people and drinking punch. Other people were shown in the panel but lacked faces. Each seemed so blurry as if a drop of water fell directly on their face. But it was obvious who these people were supposed to be. There's my hot dog cart, said James. My swordsman costume, said Nick. And my no-face costume, I said ironically. Let's just take the book and run. We can figure it out somewhere else, Joe said. The other books started flying off the shelves like crows circling in on their prey. I slid Hudson's book into my costume and took off in a run towards the stairs. As I neared them, one of the 20-foot shelves started tumbling down before me. Nick was right behind me, dodging books as they went right for him. Joe took a piece of wood off of the shelf and started swinging at the books as they circled him, bringing up dust and chopped wood. Where's James? Nick yelled. I searched for his hot dog cart and found it stalled in the corner. Over there, I pointed. We ducked and ran over to the corner in a straight shot. A book came swooping down at my head and tugged at my hair. I swung at the book with my fists, but it pulled harder. Hoping this wouldn't go wrong, I grabbed the book from the air and ripped it open. The hand was tugging at my hair, only just breaching the surface of the page. I smashed the book against the wall and the hand released me. I flung the book as far as I could. Nick was about to reach the cart and didn't even notice what just happened. I sprinted toward him until we reached the corner. The cart looked empty, I noticed. Hopefully he's hiding inside, Nick said. He rolled the cart over and found nothing but a book titled A Life Well Lived by James Fowler. They got James, he screamed. Nick grabbed the book and he ran towards Joe, still swinging at the flying books. "We gotta get out of here," Joe yelled. "Agreed," Nick and I said in unison. With a final swing of the wood, we all ran towards the stairs, ducking and dodging books as the rest of the shelves started falling over. We finally made it to the stairs and ran all the way down, taking them by 2s and 3s until the spiraled stairs were completely behind us. We reached the lower study and sighed in relief. "That was a close one," Nick said. He reached for the oak door, and a large hand pulled us into the 3 remaining books. The Outsider's Perspective by Nick, Here We Go by Joe, Through My Eyes by Kendra all lay on the floor next to the Hudson Files and A Life Well Lived. And that's it.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And the way you worded it to like show where you're going throughout the whole town, libraries and stuff was so cool. And then I didn't expect that all, even like the whole book eating thing. So
I like the amount of references. I liked it, and I also thought about doing a Nick Books a Million.
Oh, yeah.
Story.
Yeah. Cool. I really tried to pull from other stories to make it more interesting, and I also had to find a Family Guy episode that mentioned anything like this. I thought it would be funny to add the whole Branzino since we were talking. We talked about it so often recently.
When you mentioned that, Joe, I looked over at Joe and
A near death in the family. It's a late September night, and the evening breathes the final gasps of summer air as we stand around discussing. I mean, it's probably Peter Griffin, right? Kendra shrugs. I don't know, I sway my head in consideration. It's not a button-up. I'm sure he could have committed to that much if he was going for Peter. Oh, Brian! It could be Brian, Hudson exclaims. Oh, Kendra sighs. True, I guess it could be. Good thought, I nod. My purple overcoat is making me sweat a bit. It's too warm to be wearing it, but it's an important part of my costume. I'm dressed as Soul Chaser from my comic. Hudson is dressed as his comic character, Dragon Fist. Kendra, inspired by Hudson's outfit from the previous year, has donned a pair of blue jeans and a white polo to adapt the guise of Homer Simpson. We were dressed up for our annual Terror Tales night, but we had decided to delay the storytelling at the last minute to give everyone time to fine-tune their stories. As such, we were all dressed up for no reason really at all at this point. I guess it probably isn't Homer Simpson, I breathe. I'm Homer, Kendra says. I know that. That doesn't mean that he can't have dressed up as Homer too. He probably didn't though, I sigh. What? You're mumbling, Kendra says. Forget it. I shake my head. A red light turns down the driveway. Oh, well look who's finally here. Took him long enough, Hudson complains. The ambulance parks and 2 paramedics come over and join us where we stand in front of the shop, standing over James's body and the pool of blood it rests in. His white t-shirt is ruined. How long ago did it happen? One of the paramedics asks. We think it must have been about 15 minutes ago. He came right here when he got off work and he texted me to let me know he was out back. I saw the text about a minute later, we came out to greet him and we found him like this, I explained. Nodding, the paramedic knelt and felt his pulse. He still has a pulse, but it's very weak. We needed to get him to the ICU immediately. It's a shame. All this blood is ruining a perfectly good Man in White from Family Guy Episode 3 costume, the paramedic sighs. They haul him into the ambulance and I jump in with them. Kendra and Hudson meet us at the hospital. We stay late into the night. Eventually, the doctor tells us to go home. James will live, he says, but he has no way of telling when he will ever wake up. I mean, what could have happened, Kendra asks. Well, the doctor said there was no wound. Maybe a heart attack? Too much Diet Coke, Hudson suggests. I doubt it. He's a pretty healthy guy, I frown. Maybe he lowballed that wizard again on Marketplace. Well, something happened to him, and now we have a pool of his blood in our backyard and no idea how it got there, Kendra panics. The next night, Kendra and I go over to Hudson's house. His parents are out of town for the week, closing up their camp for the season. Any news on James? Hudson asks. None yet, I tell him. I wonder what could have happened to him. Something weird is going on. I feel like I've been hearing whispers in the wind, he confides. I say. Anyways, what should we do for dinner? We chill in the sunroom and read comic books for most of the evening. I'm nearly finished with TMNT vs. Street Fighter when I hear a noise coming from the kitchen. It sounds like grunting. Judging by their expressions, Kendra and Hudson hear it too. Hudson sets down Batman: The Long Halloween, and Kendra sets her Simpsons Treehouse of Horror comic book next to it. I creep out into the kitchen, checking the corners of the room. I hear the grunt again, in the hallway only a few feet from me. There, I find Wallace standing in the hallway. "Wallace?" I say, slapping my forehead with my palm. "What you doing, Wally?" Hudson asks from the sunroom as Wallace grunts again. "Wait," Kendra breathes. "Didn't your parents take Wallace to camp?" Hudson's eyes go wide. Just then, Wallace grunts real loud, like he has cleared whatever was bothering him. Then, he begins to grow. I step back in shock. Guys?" I call. He keeps growing until he stands as tall as my chest. Then, he rises up on his hind legs. "Holy crap," I exclaim. Kendra and Hudson come running out to see. "Wally? That you, buddy?" Hudson cries. The monster lets out a bellowing roar and swats at us with a giant paw. Sharp claws extend from each paw and 4 horns erupt from Wallace's head. "That's not Wallace!" Kendra screams. We bolt up the stairs, the monster following right on our heels, destroying everything in its path. We slam the door to Hudson's room, but it crashes straight through. "Ah!" we shriek. It struck at Hudson, and I slam its giant paw down with Hudson's biggest action figure. Kendra kicks it in the hind leg, and it falls to one knee. We all start to beat on the monster with whatever we can get our hands on. It barely seems to notice. It's frothing at the mouth by this point. We run back downstairs, breathing raggedly, and sprinting down into the basement, where Kendra and I hide in the closet. "Wait, where's Hudson?" I ask. Before she can answer, we hear breathing right outside the closet door. We hold our breath, shivering with fear. Then I hear Hudson's voice from upstairs. "Hey, you jerk! You aren't my dog!" The monster turns and runs upstairs. Hudson, standing atop the staircase, aims his dad's BB gun and shoots the monster right in the eye. It stumbles and yelps. Hudson cocks the rifle and shoots again. This time the BB bounces off its forehead. It lets out another roar, then charges at Hudson. He turns and runs. We bolt up the stairs after them just in time to see it corner Hudson in the kitchen. He falls to the ground, back against the wall, out of options. He gulps. "Sorry?" I grab hold of the monster's tail and yank it. It swings around and hits me, launching me through the air into the mirror over the fireplace. "Ugh," I groan as I dizzily climb to my feet. Vision blurry, I see 3 monsters running at me. This time, I run. Kendra quickly helps Hudson to his feet, and he begins loading another BB. I notice that the monster's right eye is still out of commission. I lead it back upstairs and once more into Hudson's room. I yank the comforter off Hudson's bed and circle around the monster, wrapping it up in the comforter. I hear Kendra and Hudson's footsteps pounding up the stairs. Desperate, I wrap my arms around the creature and try to prevent it from breaking free. As I get to the door, I yell, "Hudson, shoot its other eye! I'll try to hold it steady!" Hudson aims and carefully lets off a shot, hitting his mark. The creature shakes me loose and I fall to the ground, but it's blinded now. While it stumbles around, we all start beating on it again. It lets out one last roar, then I drop kick it in the chest. The weight of the monster sends it through the wall of Hudson's second-story bedroom, regrettably taking Hudson's PC with it. It hits the ground hard and stops moving. A cloud drifts past, allowing the full moon to brighten the sky. When the moonlight hits the monster, it disintegrates into thin air. The next night, Joe flies home for the weekend. Kendra, Joe, Hudson, and I all go to my sister's house for dinner. It's taco bowls, and they're awesome. After dinner, we start up a game of Catan. It's Kendra's turn when I get a call from the hospital saying James has woken up. We race over to see him. "James!" we cheer. He lies on the hospital bed watching Family Guy on the hospital television. "Whoa," he says. "Joe's home from college? How long have I been out for?" Hudson says, 4 years, man. He already graduated." "Holy crap," James gasps. "Wait, did you guys go see Five Nights at Freddy's 2 without me?" "Oh, stop," Kendra says. "It's only been a couple days." "So, dude, what happened to you?" Joe asks. James shrugs. "Don't know. I got out of my truck, felt the chill, then I woke up here." "Are you hurt?" "There's a ton of blood around you when we found you," I prompt. "Nope, I'm fine. Ain't my blood," he shrugs again. This raises some eyebrows. When we get home, Joe and I go out back to the crime scene. "So it happened right here?" Joe asks. "Yep," I nod. The blood is still there, although now it was mostly just a stain on the tar. We scrape away at it with some screwdrivers and manage to get enough of it together to stick in a Ziploc bag. The next day, we have Kendra bring it to work to have it identified in the lab. She calls on her lunch break with the results. Apparently, the blood had come from an unidentified species. It didn't match any known organism. Solemnly, Joe leaves for the library to do some research. I start cleaning up, as everyone will be coming over that evening for my birthday party. Hudson comes over first, as usual. We play a few rounds of Smash Bros. And go outside to shoot some hoops. Kendra gets off work early, and when she gets home, we start a fire. "Where's Joe?" Hudson asks. He must still be at the library, I suppose. I wonder if he's found anything. Hudson, you feeling alright? Kendra asks. His face had suddenly gone a bit green. I don't know. My stomach just started hurting, he breathes. Huh, I say, and we haven't even gotten grilled cheese burritos yet. Yeah, Kendra cheers. Let's go get him. I'm starving. Hudson stands and makes a grunting noise that sounds all too familiar. I frown. Oh, crap. His form begins to change completely. He becomes a ghoulish nightmare, more than twice as tall as me, with green skin, sunken eyes, and hair like straw. Ew, Kendra yells. We run to the shop, the creature in pursuit. It seems to be moving very slowly, but its limbs are so long that it's still gaining on us. We slam the door to the shop and run to the back, hiding behind the old snowmobile. We hear the door creak open and the creature's head pokes through the doorway, its long body slowly following. It feels around carefully, its movements eerily gentle. It is slack-jawed, large mouth hanging wide open. It grows closer and closer, then turns around. Just when I think it might leave, its head snaps back and looks right at us. It clomps toward us at a jarring speed. Screaming, I chuck a brick at it and we scramble in between its legs, running out back the way we came. We run towards the road. At the same time, Joe's car pulls into the driveway. He slams the accelerator and smacks right into the creature, taking out its knees. It falls over the top of his car and tumbles off. He quickly runs over it and reverses over it, going back and forth several times. Still, the creature regenerates fast. Joe hops out and yells, It's called Agruyanda. It's an old world forest demon that can go dormant within a living host. It has all sorts of nutty magical powers, but it has a weakness. It's highly allergic to Tony's Creole seasoning. Are you serious? I demand. That's what the book said, he shrugs. We just need to find a way to get some in its system. I'll figure something out, Kendra proclaims. She runs towards the house as the creature regains its feet. We'll keep it busy, I tell her. Joe and I take off into the woods, screaming, the monster right on our tails. What's our plan? Joe asks. Just run and keep running, I huff. Fair enough, he agrees. If we kill this thing, will the host survive, I ask? Seems like it's about 50-50. Crap, I grit my teeth. Hope you're feeling lucky today, Hudson. Kendra comes running out into the woods holding a tall glass. Hey, Agruyanda! I made you a fresh glass of iced tea, she hollers. What the heck is she doing? Joe gapes. She sets the glass down on the ground, then runs away and hides behind a tree. Almost immediately, the monster strides over to the glass, bends down, picks it up, and drinks it all in one gulp. However, it failed to realize that while half of the glass had been filled with iced tea, the other half had been filled with Tony's Creole seasoning. It sets the glass back down, then bursts into purple flames and shrieks in agony. It burns for an uncomfortably long time, then crumples to a ball on the ground. When the monster dies, the purple flames are extinguished, leaving a super charred Hudson on the ground, tongue flopping out to the side. How did you know that the Agruyanda would go for a glass of iced tea? Joe asks. No one can resist a fresh glass of iced tea, she says. I tap Hudson's shoulder. Hudson, you gonna make it, man? He hasn't moved at all and doesn't appear to be breathing. We exchange concerned looks. My phone starts ringing. It's James. I pick it up. Yo, the doctor said I was good to go, so I came over for the party. Where are you guys? I brought pretzel crust hot and ready's. At the sound of this news, Hudson's eyes pry open. He goes to speak, his burnt skin cracking as he moves his mouth. He groans. Cheese sauce? Or regular? Both, James says. We all cheer. As we enjoy our hot and ready's, Hudson reflects. It must have been on Tuesday when I was out back taking pictures for my photography class. I thought I swallowed a fly or something, but I guess it was an ancient evil entity. So that thing definitely could have summoned the monster at Hudson's house. But is it also what attacked James? Kendra asks. Nah, I don't think so, James says. I forgot I lowballed that wizard again last week. He always does this. Man, you gotta leave that guy alone, Joe laughs. What about the blood then, I wonder? Probably just another unknown entity that the Agruyanda killed in a territory dispute, and James parked right next to it, Joe says. Oh, I nod. Great. So how many eldritch horrors are battling in my backyard then, do we think? Probably more than you'd expect, Joe admits. That's true of most places, though. Maybe Meemow's an eldritch horror, Kendra says. Yeah, I say. The end.
Nice. That was pretty awesome.